He was obviously on his own, so the farmer also gave us a donkey. You're not walking away without a 15 grand bill. It's like having a baby in the NICU. If the vets aren't being paid, they're just not going to do it.
This episode is brought to you by the Horse Trust and Pet and Pony.
Hello everybody, happy Wednesday. Hello Rhi, how you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you? I feel like I always go first. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go first. I'm good actually. Yeah, I'm having a good hormone week, so that's nice. And always a good reminder for me, like when I start feeling good, I'm like, oh yeah, when I'm not feeling good, it's not just that my brain is falling out of my ears and I need a lobotomy. It is in fact that my hormones are a bit complicated. So yeah, it's good. And I've been really trying to be a bit more disciplined in my life. Like when my alarm goes, getting out of bed. And I don't know if you struggle with discipline. I don't think you do. I think you're a very disciplined person, actually. I think you are, aren't you, right? You said
No, I am. I'm laughing, but I am quite disciplined, but only because I wouldn't be able to do anything if I didn't, because my life is like, it's not chaotic, but I do a lot of stuff.
For sure. And I do a lot of stuff, but I do it in a very chaotic way. And so
Yeah, I couldn't do that.
a friend of mine who I'm going to give a shout out to on this podcast because he's doing an amazing thing. He has been doing a challenge for Movember. And actually, you'll hear this in December, but I'm sure his fundraising will still be open. And maybe I'll put it in the show notes because he has done an amazing thing. For every single day in November, he did a 60-minute workout at the gym with a 60-kilo worm. So it's like a sandbag that weighs 60 kilos. Bear in mind, I weigh 60 kilos. So he's done a workout for a solid hour every day, sometimes on his own at 5 o'clock in the morning, because that's how he had to fit it in memory of a friend that he lost to suicide. And he said that he has learnt a lot about discipline in the time of doing this challenge, because there are days when he was like, I don't want to do that. Absolutely not. Why would I choose? That would not be a fun thing to do. But because he had, said he was going to do this, and because of his friend who he valued so much, who he is doing this in honour of, he really struck up some discipline to do it. And I really it really resonated for me, because I think I struggle with discipline some of the time. And I actually think that sometimes I struggle with discipline and then that affects me in other ways. Like it then means that I'm late. I'm rushing somewhere to do something. And actually having discipline, like getting up when my alarm goes instead of snoozing and waiting or whatever it might be, has actually really helped me out, especially this week. I've really noticed it. I've been really trying to consciously be more disciplined, and I've actually felt so much better because of it.
I love this. Isn't it? I think there's a phrase that I think James Clear said it. He said, we don't rise to the levels of our goals, we fall to the levels of our systems. And that is ultimately what discipline is. It's like just those little decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis to help you do the tiny things that lead to the big things.
Absolutely. And I just think I have relied on motivation too much, and you can't. Motivation is not going to get you through. You've got to be like, I'm not giving myself a choice in this. I'm just going to do the thing. So that was one of the things that I've been really noticing that I wanted to share. And then the other thing was we had Tom Broadbridge come back to see the horse's feet.
So
My
lovely.
favourite Tom. I just think he's just so lovely and kind, and the horse's feet have made some amazing improvements, and it was really cool actually to see. One thing that was very interesting that I wanted to mention, because we're going to be talking more about this in season 5, just to give you a little pull you into the next season, is I had to trim Blondie's back feet myself. The whole thing. Yeah, I know. Rhi's face is looking.
Oh my god! Wow, that's so impressive. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, it was incredibly hard work. Not because she was hard work, because it is really hard to be a farrier. You won't be able to see this on the recording, but I'm showing Rhi my pointy finger and my index finger and my middle finger, because they both have wounds on them. I don't know if you can see that with my fuzzy camera.
You're a little bit blurry, but that's okay.
I'm always a bit blurry because my internet is absolutely useless. I could tell you about my internet debacle as well if you like. But anyway, I trimmed Blondie's back feet, and actually when I got good at it and Tom was showing me and guiding me from a distance, because Blondie was having none of it this week, interestingly. She actually did nearly take his lovely head off. And she can be like that with people. And I don't know, sometimes just the wind takes her and she just doesn't feel in the mood for a man. But me, no problem. It's not about the thing, it's about the trust of the person. Anyway, I trimmed her feet and it felt really cool, and I'm learning more and more. And the more I learn, the less I know, and I'm okay with that. And, you know, learning about, did you know that horses have a natural arch in their foot like we do?
No.
Yeah. So actually in the wild, you will see horses with an arch in their hoof, like an actual curvature. I'm doing like a C shape with my scabby index finger and thumb. And it, like, so if you imagine like the heel to the toe, there's like a bit of an arch at one point, sort of halfway down the frog, but on the external wall. And it I was learning about that, and I was learning about how to cut the bars out this time, because like Zora develops loads of bar right next to the frog, so the bit that's kind of like sticks out. It's very difficult for a podcast to describe this. We'll need to think of this next season when we're talking about the hoof school, which Tom and I spoke about. So the hoof school we are going to be working with in season 5, and we're very excited to do so. And Rhi and I have been gifted the course to take, and I can't wait to take it, Rhi, because I just think our minds are going to be blown by all of the knowledge that we're going to gain. But the parts of the foot that, you know, Zora has very weak bars, so she develops them a lot. So then actually they kind of fold over, and then they put pressure on her heels. And it was just like a whole couple of days of learning and inspiration and all that cool stuff. So yeah, that's my update. Oh yeah, I was going to tell you about the internet, but maybe it's not that interesting. Do you want to hear about the internet situation that I'm in?
I feel like you set it up now.
Well, we're trying to get internet installed at the new place. So that's my new place update. That's currently the work I'm doing. And I'm having such a nightmare with it, because one guy came and did a survey and said that we needed an insulated ladder. But then the next man that came said nobody said we needed an insulated ladder to go up the telegraph pole. And I was like, oh, the first guy did say that. And he said, well, no, it's not written on my notes. And it's just like this endless stream of events with an utter nightmare. So I'm trying to work with BT, but they're not doing a great job so far. They sold me so well at the beginning, and now it's just a logistical shit show. And it's very difficult. I'm not enjoying it very much, that part of it, because I don't actually know how to fix the problem that I'm having, because I seem to speak to a different person every single time I call them, and it's a nightmare. How was your week? What's new with you?
There's literally nothing worse than adult admin. Nothing worse. It's just so annoying.
Agreed. And there's nobody that's going to tell you how to do it, you know? You just have to do it, and you just have to struggle through. Anyway, there we
figure it out. Yeah. But no, interesting to hear two of your points. I think our intros are going to be relatively connected, because the first thing was I went talking about like learning and always learning. I was invited to go to the Healthy Horse Conference, which was super interesting. I was invited because Red Wings were going, and they sort of connected us, and I ended up being on a panel about using your influence for good. And that was really cool. And the whole conference was about welfare, and how, as it was actually a conference for professionals, and they were all there to learn about how to have better welfare. And there were all these updates in the veterinary space and rehab. And there's actually a couple of people I'd quite like to get on the podcast, but I haven't talked to Miri about it yet.
Do you mean professionals like vets, physios, or do you mean professionals like professional riders?
Yeah, good distinction. I meant professionals like vets, physios. They kept saying it counted towards your CPD, and I didn't know what that meant.
Oh, so that means
I'm not a professional.
As a coach, I can go to CPD days for course building or pole work exercises, or I don't know what other ones that BS do, British show jumping do. But anyway, that's that sort of thing. Like farriers really go to them with other farriers, for example, or this kind of thing. Yeah.
So that was fun. So I'd like to explore a bit of those topics maybe next season. But the other thing that I have started watching is, so Horse and Country I don't know if you've watched it, friends on the call, but the All-Star Academy. So I haven't watched it before, but I know the premise, which is like a bunch of everyday riders who can ride to a sort of fairly good standard, go for a week, and they kind of compete to sort of stay in the competition. It's kind of like the X Factor, I think, sort of, although they didn't get sent home this season. Anyway, it doesn't matter. they're all there for a week, and I'm not explaining it very well. It's actually really good. And in the first few episodes, they have a lesson with Mary King. Was it Mary King? Yeah,
Yes.
with Mary King. I had a panic that I got the wrong person there. No, it was definitely Mary King. And then they had lessons with...
Did you used to play her game?
Yes.
Oh,
We could go on a whole tangent about this. I wish I could track down the developer who made Pippa Funnels, Take the Reins, and Mary King's... What was the Mary King one was called?
something Star.
The Stud Farm Inheritance? No, that was Pippa Funnel. Riding Star!
Yes.
Mary King's Riding Star and Pippa Funnel's Stud Farm Inheritance.
That was.
And then there was the other ones.
Children that didn't have ponies.
Oh, honestly, I'd get home from a day at the riding school and play on that, and it would be great. So anyway, went on a tangent, but the point was they were having a lesson with Charlie and Pammy Hutton, and I think it was Charlie. Was it Charlie? It might have been Pammy. It might have even been Mary King. I don't know. The point is, someone very special was talking to one of the riders, and they were saying, you can't expect your horse. They were talking about transitions and being properly over the back and on the bit and on the contact in a transition. And they were saying, you can't expect your horse to be on the bit and over the back in every transition if you are not insisting that that is what you want them to do. And they were like, you know, if you tell your horse off on one transition for not being on the contact, but then the next time you let them have a different shape, that horse has no idea what it is that you actually want. And that for me was quite a useful framing, because sometimes I think my relationship with dressage in the past has been that dressage is quite like, well, you're going to go in this place and you're going to be here and it won't, and it's all quite forceful. And actually this was much more about like, are you being clear about your expectations on the horse and being like, when we do this, I would like you to do this. When we do this, I'd like you to do this. And this is the conversation. So it was just really interesting, because I thought, you know, sometimes I think we think we're being kind when actually we're probably asking our horses to work in an upside down shape, which isn't very good for their backs. And we're trying not to add pressure, but at the same time, we're then having mixed signals in a conversation. So it was just a really interesting thing that brought me back to the discipline point that you were talking about.
Yeah, and I think discipline of yourself is important to acknowledge in that. You know, not of the horse. Like, it's not like you're being
your aids.
there. Yeah, you're being just straight disciplined with yourself. And I think the word consistency comes up a lot. I have somebody who I've had a lot of training with jumping. She's like, you need to be consistent for them to start to understand. Like, I'm very consistent from the ground. You know, I always use the same aids, the same sounds, the same rope halters, whatever it might be, the same consistent thing. And then I was jumping around a course of fences, and she's like, you know, sometimes you're leaving her completely free, and then sometimes you're really there supporting her. You know, be consistent in what you're doing so that they can then answer in a consistent way. So that's really interesting. And I haven't watched it, but I have been enticed by the advertising, so maybe I will.
I do think it was one of those programs that as an everyday rider, I was actually enticed by a horse who looked really similar to Harley. And the description on the clip was really similar to Harley. It was talking about a horse who's quite spooky and holds on to things. And Charlie was saying the great thing is that you can help train that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I messaged the girl, and it turns out they have like 4 matching bloodlines. Really interesting. Wow. He's also a pure Irish draft, but he is like massive. So anyway, that's what made me watch it. But as a normal horse rider, just watching some of the conversations happening in the coaching is so relatable, because it's all stuff that we could work on better, like being really consistent in the way that we ask for an upward transition or a downward transition, or how do we not lose the outside shoulder, you know, all these simple things that we all do. It was just very fun. Watched it over when I was cooking dinner. It was good.
Love that. I'm going to introduce our guest today. So today we are going to be joined by somebody called Holly Lenahan. Now, you may follow her. She has a large following on social media, and Holly does a few very cool things. Holly is a vet. She trained to be a vet, and I followed her before she was a vet. When she was at university, I believe, studying, but still not fully practicing. But she also jumps to Grand Prix. And she keeps her horses at her home in Ireland, and they live a very cool life in the field in herds, and she breeds some horses and has spent some time in Australia being a stud vet. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation, because I think Holly is one of those people who is getting a lot of things right for the horse while still doing some amazing things, and I think that should be really yelled about at the top level. So yeah, I will. Yes, let's welcome Holly.
Every rider knows the bond you share with a horse, the trust, the partnership, the way they give you everything they have. Now imagine those horses who've given their entire lives to service. Police horses, ceremonial horses, RGA horses, helping children with disabilities experience the joy of riding. Heroes who've earned their rest. The Horse Trust has been their sanctuary for nearly 140 years, giving these incredible animals the peaceful retirement they deserve. But keeping over 140 horses safe and cared for takes support from the equestrian community. And that's where you come in. Organise a sponsored hack, host a tax sale, put on a dressage demonstration or fun day at your yard. Whatever brings your equestrian community together, you can turn it into support for horses who've served us all. Every pound you raise gives a retired hero the care they've earned. Visit thehorsetrust.org.uk to start your fundraising journey, because these horses carried others their whole lives. Now it's our turn to carry them. So Holly, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're really excited to chat to you. Miri has done a lovely job of kind of setting you up. But I think one of the things that's quite unique about you is the way you keep your horses whilst also competing to a very high level. So I wonder if you could give us a little bit of background on you, the horses, what you do, and the yard.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm actually a vet. I'm graduated 5 years now, so I kind of have that background, but I've always ridden horses and just loved it so much. And when I was in school, I really wanted to ride horses full time, but obviously education and having a backup plan is very important. And my mum's a teacher, so education was also very important in our family. So I tried to pick a career that I thought I could do horses as well. Veterinary is not the career for that because it's very, very full time. So I don't know why I thought I'd be able to be a vet and ride horses. But anyway, I found a nice kind of combination of doing veterinary for 6 months in Australia for the breeding season and then riding horses for 6 months in Ireland for our spring summer season. So I was able to earn money and then immediately spend it, and then earn money and immediately spend it again, which was great balance. But I've actually just finished doing that. I did my 5th and final season in Australia, and I came home in February, and I've not gone back this winter. So I'm struggling through my first winter in about 6 years. But yeah, I'm really, really loving it, loving doing the horses full time, being able to put 100% of my energy and mind into it and not be have a countdown clock in my head thinking I'm going back to Australia. So yeah, it's quite exciting. We have showjumpers, breed a very small number of horses, produce them. I say we all the time, it's me, and my dad comes out every so often to help me, but it is mostly me, just kind of kicking on.
As someone who has followed Holly for a very long time on social media, I don't even know how I totally first started following you, but I remember you vlogging in your little car, and you were riding a grey horse, and it was and then I remember you going to a show and your dad being there, and it just being this lovely thing. And I don't know, I just felt very kindred spirit with you, I suppose, because you didn't grow up with ponies, I think I remember you saying. And so, I don't know, it's kind of can you tell us a bit actually about how you got into horses and your early years with it?
Yeah, sure. Well, my parents aren't into horses at all, so that was just not, it's not from my family. I grew up in Sydney in the suburbs, so for sure not horses there. We moved around a little bit, and then when we moved to Ireland, my house was actually opposite a riding school, and then a few girls in my class rode ponies too, and I was yeah, sign me up for my weekly lessons. So yeah, I just learned to ride like that. I think I was maybe 12. I'm actually not sure, but not really young. And then I got my first pony 17 years ago because he is 17. So when I was 12. Really bad at maths. But he was actually a foal. My dad went to Ballinasloe Fair with my neighbour, who was this very, very lovely old man who I loved dearly and who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. So, but my dad went with him to sell his Connemara foal. They went to the pub. They never sold the foal. On the way home, my dad said, look, I'll buy the foal off you then. So he came home with the foal, and that was my first pony. So yeah, it was a bit of a interesting decision making, but all worked out. We actually
Holly,
still have him.
So cute. Like before we started recording, we got on a bit of a tangent talking about like Pippa Funnel Take the Reins and the Stud Farm Inheritance and all those games, which Holly doesn't know because Holly hasn't played them. But this is very much giving the Stud Farm Inheritance. Like, girl, 17 years old, gets a foal, has the foal for 17 years. Her dad buys it. It's all very,
I know,
very video game centric.
My mum was telling me this week that she's been like having a clear out at home. They've been decorating and stuff, and she's been sorting out books. And she was like, "Oh, I've got all of these lovely books that you read when I was probably like 10 or 11 maybe." And they were like this. They were this story, Holly. They were like, young girl comes home and finds a pony in the garden, and then they fall, and they're called things like Spirit and Wisdom, and it's like all like this magical, childlike experience that is actually really, really cool and what we all dream of. So okay, so you got a foal.
Yeah.
Can you go into a bit more detail, like what happened? Did
yeah.
you ride the foal at some point?
Yes, at some point, yes. So we lived right next door to the man who owned the foal. So obviously when he was weaned, he came to our house. We had this tiny little paddock. He was essentially in our back garden. He was obviously on his own, so the farmer also gave us a donkey for him to have a friend. And yeah, I just like adored him. He came in the back kitchen, like he's just an absolute legend of a pony, and honestly still is. But obviously my dad, he says his thinking was that, oh, I'll get her this so she stops nagging me. I wasn't into video games, but I was into reading. I read all like the Heartland books and everything. So I think maybe that's my thing when I was a kid. But I had this encyclopedia of horses, and I remember I would put it open on a new page every day on the kitchen counter for my parents to see. And hint, hint, wink, wink, I want a pony. Anyway, my dad thought the foal would stop me nagging them, and then by the time the foal was old enough to be ridden, I probably would have given up, and then he'll just sell it back to my neighbour and he'll bring it to Ballinasloe Fair to sell it. I did not obviously give up the horses. I kept doing my riding lessons. I would spend all summer every day at the yard helping out, mucking out in return for riding the horses. We used to ride the school ponies. Then you graduate, because where the riding school was, the man that owned it also had show jumpers. So there was like young horses, older horses, and the school ponies. So if you helped out enough and helped with the pony camps and everything, then you get to ride. That's where I learned to break in horses, everything like that. And then, a few years later, I was still obsessed, and my parents were like, okay, we'll buy you a pony that you can actually ride. And then I did get my kind of actual first pony, who was called Marley, a grey Connemara.
That is very cute, and a very like I think times are a bit different now, and I think like it's harder to go and earn your way as such. Like when I did the same thing. Like I just used to help out so much that I then got opportunities. But I do think now things are a little bit different. And from there, when did you start sort of getting a little bit more serious, I suppose, like putting in an arena in the back garden, that kind of thing? Like, how did that sort of thing take place?
Yeah. So I had my pony at that riding school livery yard for quite a while. And then when I was going into my final 2 years of secondary school, it was quite hard to study and also do the horses at the yard because it was a little bit far away. We'd also moved to our current house that we're in now. It was obviously like a very big decision for my parents to buy a place that had some paddocks and a little few stables. Very luckily, they still owned the house that we had in Australia, and they sold that and was able to buy this. It's like, I feel like everyone's like, I don't come from money, but like I just want to show that it's not like my parents just bought a big farm. But then we had the place, but it had no arena, and then there was an all-weather surface. And then in my last 2 years, my parents were like, "Okay, she's serious. She's not going to start riding. We're worried she's not going to do well in her exams." So they put some sand on the all-weather, and that is actually, well, we've extended it since then, but that's the arena now that we still have. So yeah, it was just to be able to study and also ride.
That is so cool. And so presumably you then finished school. Did you carry on studying, or did you then go straight into like quote unquote riding full time?
Oh no, I did veterinary degree. So
Oh yeah, of
yeah,
course you
yeah.
did. Yes,
No,
sorry.
it's okay. So when you finish your final exams in school, we go to uni. We call it college. I know it's kind of a little bit different in the UK. But yeah, it's 5 years and then you are a vet. And then that was when it was very difficult to ride at the same time, because the only college in Ireland that does it is an hour and a half away. It's in Dublin. So I did a few different things to try and make it work. At the start, it was mostly just riding during the summer. 1 year, I was able to bring my horse to Dublin in a livery yard that was close to the college, but it's so expensive in Dublin. But it was actually the year my YouTube really was doing quite well, and my earnings from YouTube paid for my livery, which was very, very exciting.
Amazing.
Then I went into final year, which is all rotations. So it's a lot of like you're on for very busy for 2 weeks and you could be off for 2 weeks. So I was kind of like trying to ride and go drive home, all sorts of things. And okay, missed a few lectures here and there to try and ride, but it wasn't so bad. But yeah, it's funny when you say when did it become professional, because or like serious, maybe like 8 months ago, to be honest, because that's when I stopped being a vet.
So you went through vet school, and obviously, that takes a lot of, well, discipline, as we spoke about in the intro today, to get through that, because there probably were times when you were like, this is harder work than I want it to be. I'd quite like to just be riding horses. But you did enjoy doing your veterinary degree? Yeah, did you?
I loved it. It was honestly some of the best 5 years of my life. I loved it so much. I had such a great group of friends. Veterinary is like, oh, we were super cliquey, I have to say. But because of that, we're like this big family. Like my best friends are still the friends I went to vet school with. I love, like, I know everyone says I love animals, but I do, I do. I really love animals. I love them way more than people. I just feel like they're so like perfect, like they have no ill intent like people. So I just really loved it, and also just like the crack was unreal. We were going out all the time, like we're living in the city away from our parents. It was class. So yeah, no, I loved it, and I loved being a vet, and I loved my job in Australia. I said loved a million times, but it was just such a good time. My bosses were amazing. The people I worked with are amazing. My clients were amazing. I was really lucky. It was my first job I got was this job in Australia. I did my internship there for 6 months, and then they said, "Would you come back?" And I said, "Yeah," because I don't want to be in Ireland in the winter. And then that went well. So they asked would I sign a 3-year contract, like for the 3 seasons. And I said, yeah. And I do mainly reproduction. So I had basically by the last few seasons, I had like 2 main clients. So I only had to deal with these 2 people who I really loved, and they were really nice, and I got on really well with them. And it was just the perfect job. I loved it.
And is that quite, I don't know much about veterinary, I have to say. So is that quite normal for Irish and British vets to spend a season in Australia and then come back and go over for the breeding season?
Yeah, it is quite common, and a lot of the stud vets are from Europe. Mostly because, well, okay, there's probably a few reasons. One is because you can do season back to back. 2, the money is very good if you just go for 6 months, because it's not like an ideal situation for someone. It's fine for me. I was single. I had no ties. I am single. So it was fine. And also there's a huge number of horses, so many horses, so many thoroughbreds, standardbreds. So like on a day I would scan like 80 mares. Like, it's just so much. So you learn a lot, you see a lot of horses, you see a lot of foals. It's great. And the work-life balance in Australia is excellent. It's much better than here, for vets anyway. It's just better. It's so good.
Do you, so, you've obviously made then a difficult decision potentially to do the riding. Is this come at like a specific time for you? Does this feel like kind of something that just was always it was inevitable, or did you make a decision to do this more full time now for a reason?
I think there was a few different factors that played a part. One was, okay, yeah, there's a few. One was obviously I had to sign that 3-year contract. So to stay longer, it would be to sign a new contract, which was on the table. My practice that I worked for had been sold to a corporate. That also played a role in my decision. I also, I'd bred a few horses, and they are just now coming to the age to be ridden. So it kind of felt like before I didn't really have a lot of horses to ride. I only had my main 2 horses that we'd bred like several years ago. But now I do have one almost for every age group. So it probably would be a good time to actually start working on them. It kind of just a few things came together and it just kind of made sense. And I said, look, I'll do it until I run out of money, basically.
So you mentioned that you love animals, right? And I think we do all love animals.
Yes.
But can you talk to us a bit about how you show your love to those animals, like in the way you keep them? Because I do think that it's important to touch on this because you know as well as I do, we do, that there is maybe not great management of horses at the top of the sport, i.e. like not a lot of turnout and things like that. Can you talk to us a bit about how you keep your top horses, well, all your horses, and why that's so important to you?
Yes. I have to say the way that we keep the horses is not like, it's not like I kind of sat down and was like, how can I, like, what makes them happier? It just feels like it's just the natural thing that I did, and they're happy and then I'm happy. So my horses, we bred them, so which makes it a lot easier. They've always lived out in herds. So they really find it easy. They understand the other horses' responses to them. Like I find sometimes I have horses in, and if they haven't lived in herds, they will get a kick because when the horse tells them to bugger off, they don't understand what that means, and then they don't, and then they get the kick. Whereas these horses have lived out, they know well all the warnings that come before the kick. So that's why I do feel a little bit more comfortable keeping my good horses out. I have them in their pairs or threes that they always stay with, so then there isn't these like changes in dynamics. I just try and keep them out as much as possible. I don't know, I just feel like it's so much better for them. Like you come home from a show, they've been standing in the horse box all day. Like it can't be good to like exert yourself and use your muscles and then stand still. Like I wouldn't feel good if I did that. So it just makes sense. It just always made sense to me. Okay, we get home from the show, we stick them out in the field for the night. Fine. And I know some people are like, oh, they only during the night, or only during the day, but I'm happy to put them out during the night.
It is one of my favourite things when I come home from a show with Harley, or I come back from a weekend, like a pony camp weekend where he's had to be in, and he gets off the lorry and literally walks down to the field. And I know not everyone can keep their horses out at night. I do understand that, but it is one of the things that brings me such a lot of joy, because I have the same thought process as you. Like, he's done all this work, he's been stood on the lorry. Does he really want to go now stand in a stable for the night? Probably not. So yeah, I love that. And your horses are barefoot too, right?
Some. Again, with the barefoot and shoeing, I'm like it's not like I'm a barefoot and like, I'm just whatever the horse is happy with. If the horse needs shoes, if the horse needs something to correct, if we've taken x-rays at the feet and there's a thin sole or there's a bit of an imbalance and it needs shoes, I'll do that. I try not to because honestly, just for convenience of they don't lose shoes. They're not pulling half their hoof wall off when they lose the shoe. Because they live out, they are more prone to lose the shoes. If they are in pairs or in groups, if they don't have back shoes, okay, if they do kick, you're less chance of an injury. And okay, there is good evidence that barefoot is better. You see a lot of the Swedish are doing it. So especially all the young horses. For sure the young horses, they're all barefoot. And like, for example, I have one young horse at the moment who is a little bit of a conformational thing we need to work out. She has shoes on just for that, and then hopefully we can take them off.
Again, not a purist approach.
No.
And I think this is what we often talk about. You can't right? You can't have a purist approach because we're not dealing with bicycles with wheels. We're dealing with horses with wonky legs and, problems from before that other people have created that we need to correct. And sometimes you can do that without the shoes. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes, there's so many different ways to get round it. I wondered, Holly, if you could talk to us a bit more about, I'm interested. Do you think you'll go back to the vet side of things? But also a bit more about like life as a vet and what that kind of maybe looks like.
Yes, I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever. Well, never say never, but I don't see myself in the near future going back to veterinary in the way that I'm working for a clinic and I have my set hours and my, I can't see myself being able to ride horses and do that. And it's a sad life if I can't ride horses. So I'll try and see if I can work something else out. Obviously, I still breed my own horses. I could see myself doing having a small reaper clinic at the yard and maybe some embryo transfer and things like that in addition to the horses, but that is a huge undertaking. It seems like a small thing, and I looked into it and I realized, oh my gosh, there's so much to do that, like a lot of legal things and registering with the Veterinary Council of Ireland, etc. So that's probably a way away. I barely have enough hours to ride the horses, let alone do that as well. So who knows in the future. Reproduction is my absolute passion. If I was to go back to veterinary and in a more full-time, part-time, it would be that. But also I still have my registration with the VCI and I still go to CPD and I've just completed a certificate in advanced veterinary reproduction and stuff like that. So I'm very into veterinary but I'm only using it on my own horses. And then with what being a vet is like, I can only really say how it is in Australia, which is different to Ireland. In Australia, I worked in a referral hospital and first opinion, so we did everything from vaccinating, people's pet ponies to colic surgeries on multi-million-dollar racehorses. It was like a vast array, a lot of sick foals. It's good. I think partying all night and going to lectures all day is a very good way to train yourself to be a vet because you do stay up all night and you do work all day. So it's great. I think if you're in a good place with good people, I don't mind putting in the hours and putting in the work. I really am happy to do it. And then for that reason, I really loved it. But of course, if it's not your passion, it is a tough job. It's tough.
I remember that when I've had my fair share of spells at vet hospitals, not by being a vet, just because I'm paying customer to be there. And I do remember that, the interns that greet you at midnight when you turn up with an emergency. And I think, gosh, that really does look like a tough thing. And I think, it does look like hard graft, you've got to be tough and you've got to really love it. And I think it is not for the faint-hearted, maybe. I actually wanted to be a vet, but I didn't academically have the capacity for that. And I don't actually know if I would have made it through the hard things that you have to do because there's an element of it where you guys have to do the really hard jobs. We maybe have to experience them, but you're the ones responsible for that. How have you found that difficult, like being the one making the hard choices sometimes, or not even the choice but doing the hard thing?
I think I've been on both sides. Obviously I've been the person having to make the call that my horse has to be put down, and I've also been the person offering that choice to an owner, and being the owner of the horse is worse. I can tell you it's obviously upsetting, and when I'm being the vet, if I'm offering something to the owner, these are options, really, I think euthanasia is probably your best option, or maybe even your only option. I can say it and it's I'm sympathetic and calm and fine. But when I go away, if I think, what if that was Cal? I'll just start crying. I'm very emotional. But only if I really put myself in the person's shoes. You almost have to dissociate a little bit, which is sad. But it's no help to anyone if I'm crying, you know? So
Exactly,
you need to be like I'm really sorry. Unfortunately, these are your decision. This is your decision. These are your options. And yeah, I know it is not nice. But because I worked in like such a good hospital, I never felt that I was having to put something down that couldn't be saved. You know, like, okay, sometimes there are cases where like there's financial things to think about, but generally we're doing everything we can. And like, if there's just nothing to be done, like it's just the kindest thing, to be honest. So at least that gives you some sort of like, okay, you've done your best.
Yeah. And I think we need that from our vets, right? Especially if you've had I remember when my vet was there, when Woody was put to sleep, my horse, and we had been on such a long journey trying to make things better, and we had tried literally everything. And I think she was visibly upset, but she wasn't like, in tears. And that was actually really comforting for me, I think, because I felt like she felt it, but she also wasn't completely falling apart. And I think that was like the good balance. And when we had the conversation about it, a couple of weeks earlier, she was very kind of sympathetic, like you said, but also not emotional. And I think we need that from our vet in that moment. We need someone who understands the difficulty and who maybe, who respects the horse, but isn't going to fall apart in front of us because we are doing that or trying not to do that ourselves. So yeah, I can definitely appreciate that.
And I think as well, we also as the person experiencing it, we need the space to be able to be emotional without the whole lot going to, shit, basically. Because if everybody was there like sobbing and crying, it would be a bit of especially my older German vet would be, I think, an interesting moment if he really broke down, because he's very like, like exactly that, like sympathetic, but like, I've got you and I've got this situation and I'm going to handle this and it's going to be really hard, but I'm going to hold it together, and not just hold himself together, but like hold the whole situation together. It is, though, I think, reassuring to hear, Holly, in a funny sort of way, that you're very much still a human being within that. Like, if you put yourself in their position, that you would in fact crumple, because I hope you never lose that as well, because I think that's what's so important when we work with animals, that we don't get to that, because I do think there is unfortunately sometimes a time when that gets lost, maybe. And that's
why it's also sad to hear when you say, oh, I didn't get the veterinary because of the academic part, because I do think the academic part of veterinary is a very small aspect of it, and okay, they need to have a way of deciding who gets in and who doesn't, but it's a pity that it is so academic focused, because it's really, okay, you do need to be like, you need to know your stuff, but it's such a people person role. And this is what everyone always said to me. I said, I want to be a vet because I don't like people. And they're like, you'll deal with more people in being a vet than being a doctor. And it is true, but I think I can sympathize more with the owners of animals than if they were coming in for their own ailments.
For sure. So you've heard me talking about Pet and Pony in a couple of the episodes on this season, and I wanted to take a moment to talk about something very cool that they are doing. So you know what's better than treating your pets to things that they love is getting rewarded every time you do it. I'm talking about Pet and Pony Rewards, the brand new loyalty program that Pet and Pony puts money back in your pocket with every purchase that you make. So here's how it works. Every time you shop at Pet and Pony, you earn points. But that premium dog food your pup goes crazy for, points. Purchase a new rug for your horse, points. Grab some toys, treats or grooming supplies, you guessed it, even more points. But it gets better. You don't just earn points by shopping. Complete simple tasks like writing a review, following Pet and Pony on social media, or referring a friend, and you'll rack up bonus points too. It is honestly that easy. Then, when you're ready, you can redeem those points for money off your next order. It's like getting paid to take care of your pets, which, let's be honest, we're doing anyway. And the best part, Pet and Pony Rewards is completely free to join. There's no membership fee, no hidden costs, just straightforward rewards for being a loyal customer. Whether you've got dogs, cats, horses, rabbits, chickens, or any other animal friend, Pet and Pony has everything you need. And now you can save money while you shop. From feed to toys and accessories to rugs to tack to boots to coats, it is all there. And every purchase gets you closer to your next reward. So if you're already shopping for your pets online, why not get something back? Head over to petandpony.co.uk/rewards and sign up free today. Start earning points, start saving money, and keep giving your pets the best. Pet and Pony Rewards, because your pet deserves the best, and so do you. Now, Holly and I have actually bonded on a rather sad topic, and I wondered if, sorry, Rhi smiled at that moment and then was like, oh, no, not a smile. But Holly and I, you've bred some young horses, and you still do, and I'm so amazed by your resilience to keep going, because it is a hard thing. I bred a foal and lost a foal. And Holly, you and I think we'd spoken prior to that, but I remember you speaking to me at the time and being incredibly kind and saying, you know,
I'm glad.
These things. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've always been lovely. But you know, being like, gosh, I'm so sorry, and these things do happen, and you aren't to blame, because I did blame myself a lot early on. I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about the kind of the realities of breeding, because I know that we kind of wanted to have a breeding specialist on the podcast at some point to kind of touch on this, because often there is a thought process that people will go through when they own a mare that you hear it quite a lot in amateur circles. Oh, well, if ever she was to be injured, I would have a foal from her. And I
Pet peeve.
have experience, because it's bold, because it isn't a decision to be taken lightly. And I wonder if you could talk a bit about that.
Yes, it is for sure wrought with many emotional damage and also financial damage, but it can be amazing process. So and you see it all the time, someone that doesn't even really care, they just have their horse out running with a stallion and everything goes perfectly every time, and you're just like, how? And then someone comes to you with their beloved horse, and they've put all the thought in, they've done everything right, and it doesn't work out, and you're just like, it's just so unfair. So I would say if you do want to breed your horse, the number one thing you need is a vet who is not only knowledgeable in breeding, but is willing to give you that support, because there's so many things, and you can't be expected to know everything and to know what to do in the situation. Foaling mares is very difficult because it either goes swimmingly or an absolute disaster, because it's so quick. I think the average time of parturition is 7.5 minutes or something ridiculous. It's so quick. So if something goes wrong, you don't have a lot of time. If your vet isn't 5 minutes away, you're kind of struggling a bit. So even if you do want to breed your mare, maybe think about sending her to a stud that has those facilities. And just the costs are unreal. Honestly, they really are. So some vets, we used to do a breeding contract where you pay one set fee, and that gives you 3 cycles, which is usually the season. So something like that can be nice, that you know what you're going to spend, because it really can add up. A scan, what is it? €30. They add up. Sometimes they need to be scanned, every day. So I think the financial aspect you really need to think about. Do you really is the value of the foal going to be, and that can be emotional value also, is it going to be enough to warrant this cost? Are you better off buying something that is sound, healthy, clean x-rays, etc.? Because you can breed and they're perfect, and then they're 3 and you x-ray them and they're riddled.
Yeah, even Dee Dee, the foal I got given to replace, gosh, wrong word, that came when my foal died, she's got congenital kissing spine. Fantastic. Great. Perfect.
I'll never forget the irony of someone like you having a horse with congenital kissing spine, because I feel like you could never give a horse kissing spine because you worked them in such a correct way, and then for you to get one with congenital kissing spine is actually I don't know what fate did there. It was not fair.
No, not fair. Agreed.
Yes, agreed. Just when you started to talk about costs, my little ears perked up because I have a project called Equestrian Money Diaries where people can share their horse costs anonymously, and I set it up because I didn't think there was enough detailed and up-to-date information about it for people to make informed decisions that therefore lead to better welfare. So anyway, I'm always really interested in costs, and I know it can vary when you've got £1 million racehorses and those sort of studs versus like a backyard setup. But could you give us a rough view of like costs through the process from maybe insemination, is that the correct word, all the way through to birth?
Well, it actually doesn't.
Is that the right word?
Yeah.
I'm using all the wrong words.
It doesn't vary whether it's $1 million racehorse or a backyard pony. It's the cost of the cost, unfortunately.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
At least it's a specific, it's a consistent.
Yeah. I will say I'm probably the worst person to ask this question because, as I said, I had those 2 clients and the billing was, they just knew what things cost because they'd been doing that for years. I honestly couldn't tell you. And I especially don't really know in Ireland because I don't pay the costs, nor do I charge them. So I really, really don't know. I think the problem is not only those costs, because there are costs that you can just ask your vet, how much is a scan? How many scans do you think I need to do? How much is a semen? It's the problem is when the foal gets sick. Like we say, well, these are Aussie dollars, so we have to do some conversion, but it's like a $5,000 to just set up a dummy foal, and then it's another grand per day thereafter. Like you're not walking away without a 15 grand bill, and you might not walk away with a live foal either. So it's just like they're the costs, and they're the ones where you have to pay it there and then. Like at least a scan 1 week, little bits. And like the stallion fees are sometimes, live full guarantee, etc. But like it's the sick foal costs, or it's the dystocia, your foal, like during the foaling, there's an issue, cesarean, are you paying them? You need to have these decisions made before it happens.
I think this is the thing, isn't it? You don't get told that at the outset, and that definitely is something that you really only do learn the hard way. But I think if people listening to this were like, I thought it was romantic, this lovely romantic notion that I was going to breed a foal from my darling horse, and it wasn't romantic at all. It was really traumatizing, and I did do it again, and then that foal 18 months later broke her shoulder randomly in the field with in a lovely same field I turn my own horse out in still now. And I think, gosh, yeah, really, it's the reality of it is so risky. And I suppose, horses are risky. Of course, they can sneeze the wrong way and give themselves colic practically. But I don't know. I just feel like it's good to quantify the risk, I suppose, before you create it.
Yeah, I would definitely say
you
need to have those decisions made. You need to know how much you're going to spend on the foal. Because the problem when people are unhappy, it's when they don't understand the bill, or they say we'll give it 1 day. 1 day is not going to fix most dummy foals, so there's just no point. Don't even spend that money. Now obviously I need to justify this money, because this is the other thing, we get absolutely slated. Vets get slated for the costs of vet fees. I do understand it is very expensive, but when you see the level of care, it's like having a baby in the NICU. They're on 24/7 IV drips, medication. We have interns that go to check them. If they're off the mare, they're feeding them every 2 hours via tube. It's like such intensive care. You just they don't make us money. I want to tell you guys, those cases don't make the hospital money. I know people think they were just charging an arm and a leg to make money. They actually don't, because by the time you pay the staff, all the drugs, everything, fluids are not cheap. The lighting in the hospital all night, the heat lamps, everything, it costs a lot to run these foals, and they're definitely not our bread and butter, that's for sure.
I think as well it's important maybe to discuss a little bit, because I think not even just in this situation, but sometimes people are saying now that it costs a lot to just call the vet. Just everyday veterinary stuff maybe has become more expensive. And I suppose, would you say that the same rules apply? Maybe it's not the lighting, but it's... Yeah,
Still
what's your
the-
take on that? Would you say that that is because of just the things costing you more as a vet, do you think? Do you have a take on that, like the industry as a whole?
Yeah, definitely the costs of running a veterinary clinic, even one that's just ambulatory, is very high. I guess I've not run one, so I can't say, especially in Ireland and UK. I would say that in Ireland there is a lack of vets at the moment, of equine vets. Everyone's, can't get an equine vet, everyone's going overseas. The reason for this,
They're all turning show jumpers, aren't they?
I know. The reason for this, and the reason everyone's going to say, for example, Australia, the wages are better in Australia because they charge more. Here, the vets in Ireland charge less, the wages are less, the vets leave, you can't retain vets, then there's less vets, you get less care. It's like a vicious cycle. And and everyone's going to say, oh, you vets, you want more money. But for example, in Australia, we get paid per out of hours call we see, which I think is fair. If we get up in the middle of the night, we get, 60 euros. Cool. It just makes you feel a little bit better about it. In Ireland, now this I'm saying broadly, this is just in my job and then jobs I've had experience in Ireland. In Ireland, you don't get that. So I don't know. I don't know what the solution is where the vets, because if the vets aren't being paid, they're just not going to do it. Like, they're just going to go to other countries, or they're going to stop offering out-of-hours services. So I don't know what the solution is where it's affordable, but you're able to keep vets.
Well, I think in the same world, there's been a lot of discourse on the owner side around vets being taken over by corporates.
Yeah.
And becoming corporate practices, and that I think is part of those vets saying, well, this is the solution. But I know you mentioned it earlier, so obviously that hasn't had there's not been great sentiment from the owner side because of the perception of increased costs, etc. But do you have a perspective on the impact of corporate takeovers from the vet side?
I do find that corporates can add professionalism to the business that a vet can't, because a lot of vets are not good business people and they didn't study business and they don't really understand managing people and HR, etc. But it does come with price increases. It does come with, okay, it is a business. It's less about the individual people. It's more about, no, like, this is what we do. So it does take the personability away from it. But then, I don't know, is it a good or bad thing to have a more standardized level of care and prices? It's kind of like, I honestly don't have an answer.
Yeah, no, I think even that insight is really interesting, and it does make me think a bit about equestrianism in general. And we've touched on this in previous episodes, where because it is such an emotive industry, people will often go further than perhaps they would in a different industry, run themselves a bit further into the ground, make a bit less money, when perhaps if it had been a different industry that wouldn't have happened. So I do wonder whether, and I'm not I don't know, I'm not defending it because gosh, I don't want more prices for my vet bills either, but I do sometimes wonder whether, to your point, adding that professionalism for the vets just protects their livelihood a little bit, and standardized practices and standardized pricing and transparent pricing is something that I would always fight for personally.
Yeah.
If you've ever really looked into a horse's eyes, you'll know exactly what I mean. They give us everything, without holding anything back. Their strength, their heart, their trust. And some horses give even more. They've carried police officers into the unknown, led the way in state ceremonies, given disabled riders freedom and joy. They've shown up for people day after day for years. The horse trust is where that giving finally gets to be returned. It's the soft landing, a place for retired and rescued horses to just be horses again. To graze, to snooze in the sun, make friends and feel safe. But caring for 140 horses every single day is a huge burden, and that's where people like us can come in. A sponsored hack, a fun clear round, maybe a demo with a professional, or a yard cake morning. Whatever it is that you love doing, the Horse Trust can help you turn it into something that genuinely matters. These horses spent their lives looking after everyone, now it's our turn to look after them. Head to thehorsetrust.org.uk to see how simple it is to help. Because in the horse world, we look after our own, especially the ones who've carried so much for so long. So, Holly, the question that I ask everybody is, if you had one thing that you could say to every equestrian and they had to listen, what would you say?
I would like them to spend a month being an equine intern in an equine hospital. They would, yeah, that would be great.
Okay, can you tell us why? Yeah, why would you think that would be? I think I would love to do that, but why do you think
Same.
that
I
would
think
be
the
so
right
beneficial?
people would love to do that. Yeah, I think it would teach you a very good understanding of life and death and how difficult this industry is. You see a lot of great and you see a lot of sadness, and you can get behind the great stories and commiserate with the sad ones. And also you will learn a huge amount about horses and medicine and veterinary and how to spot issues with your own horses and foals and get ahead of things, because, you know, a lot of things can be treated if they're caught early enough. I think you would learn a lot. I think it'd be great to have that experience in the wider general public.
I'm going to do a bit of a Louis Theroux and pick up on some language that you just used there. You just said, I think the right people would enjoy it, which makes me think that there's a part of this industry that you think maybe isn't, quote unquote, doing things the right way. So who are the people that you think would actually need this, and why? Let's talk to them.
This is where it's tricky, because the people... This is where it's tricky, because the people that fund this industry, like, we need them. We need people that just like to look at horses. They just enjoy the aesthetic of it. And I fully support that. You know, I fully support people going to shows, people wanting to be owners and support the industry and enjoy it and enjoy these animals and become part of this sport. It is amazing. I love it. I love the sport as much as the horses. I really, really do. I spent every evening watching show jumping. I'm like a sado. So we definitely need those people. I think the people that are with the horses day to day, whoever that may be, those are the people that we need to, you know, get that experience and understanding of the horses. I think that's important for them. And I do think it would be lovely for the outside people to have that experience too. A month might be a bit much, just to get a bit of a horse experience.
No, I love that. And I think you speak to something really nuanced, actually, when we had Red Wings on, they said a similar thing, which is that we can't ignore where the money comes from in this industry, and we can't ignore the wider public, and they're either bringing them into this sport or completely shutting them out. And if we are going to move forward in a way that keeps our sport going and our industry going, we have to find a way to do both. We have to find a way to bring people in and keep welfare high. And I think at the moment we haven't completely found the balance, but it's getting there.
No, and it's the same like when you say about people wanting to breed their mare. I'm like so happy to, like, for someone to do that if they understand, and I would happily hold their hand. Like, I would love to introduce people into that. They obviously need to understand that can go wrong and they can lose a lot of money, but I love that. I love bringing new people in and, like, yeah, helping them through it and explaining step by step by step. And I'm on the other side of the phone if anything goes wrong, you know. I'm more than happy to be that person.
Oh, I do love that. I think that was a bit judgy of me earlier. No. I just worry that people breed their mares because their mares can't do a job anymore, and then we end up breeding into horses problems that
absolutely
maybe previous generations have had, or people that can't afford to have the second horse. But I should get off my high horse because I'm not in a position to judge.
No. And I do agree, of course, there are some people that we need to think, is this really the responsible thing to breed this horse? But I think I love it. Like, that's why, Miri, like, I know I lost two of my foals, you lost your foal. I just keep doing it because then the joy of it just completely erases all memory. Well, it's like childbirth in people. Oh, you've just completely forgot the pain because you've now got your gorgeous baby.
Absolutely. Yeah, people say that, don't they? They get to like 9 months old with their baby and they're like, I could just do that again. And people are like, did you forget when you literally birthed a watermelon? And they're like, yeah, fine. It was fine, actually. I didn't have to lie down for 2 weeks straight. No, it was fine. So I hear you. And there have been parts of me that have wondered whether I would do it again. You know, Zora obviously is like golden child to me, and she's got good conformation, she's got a very good shape, she's already got a big tummy that sticks out, so she'd fit a foal in perfectly fine. I actually had a physio say that to me once. They were like, she would be a good mother, and I was like, what makes you say that? Well, you know, just the shape of her rib cage. I'm like, oh, cheers. Yeah,
A roomy mare.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I'm glad she can't hear us, because poor Zora, she works hard for her roomy space. Anyway, there we go.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much, Holly. It's been a real pleasure to have you on. Oh, your first podcast. We're so glad we could be the ones.
Yes, thank you for taking my podcast. Virginity, can I say that on the podcast? Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
Yes.
We spoke, did you not? You did. Well, you might not have done, but we had a lady that spoke about all sorts of things, and she didn't hold back when it came to like genitalia and all sorts. So don't worry, you can say virginity.
I know, I think being a vet, especially a repro vet, I'm like vulva, vagina, cervix, etc. And then I'm like, I'm in Tesco's. I cannot be saying these things on the phone.
Oh, I love that. Oh, thank you so much, Holly. We will put your handle in the show notes, because you are YouTube superstar and Instagram also. And so you can give Holly a follow, and you can follow along with her life and exploits. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you all next week. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye for now.
See you next week.
Bye.